Hello everyone, welcome to On Purpose Astrology. I'm Mandy Lockley. Today I'm talking about new moon in Gemini on May the 6th. I've called this video The Times They Are Changing. We're in Gemini season for sure. So this is a quote from Bob Dylan, the veteran singer-songwriter himself, a Gemini, and the times they are changing indeed. But before we talk about the new moon in particular, let's recap Jupiter in Gemini. So Jupiter went into Gemini on the 26th of May. I've got a longer video, about 30, just over 30 minutes, about Jupiter and Gemini, but I think it's useful to set the context to recap about Jupiter and Gemini here. So Jupiter expands the themes of any sign that it goes through. So in Gemini, it expands Geminian themes. So it's about communication, ideas, beliefs. Jupiter itself is about beliefs. Changing our beliefs, changing our mind. It's an adaptable sign. It's a changeable sign. It's mutable air, Gemini. Facts, information, truth and lies. Truth is a very Jupiterian thing. And so is Gemini. In Gemini, often truth is the way you look at things. We learn through Gemini that we can look at things in a myriad of different ways. It's a double sign. It's the twins. We can look at both sides of the story and then make up our mind. Truth and also lies, of course. Where does the truth lie? Truth and lies. That's a major theme. It's a flexible mindset. It's about having a flexible mindset and being willing to be adaptable, to change your mind. It can also be a very scattered energy. Gemini generally itself can be a scattered energy. It likes variety. It likes to do lots of different things. It likes to change and swap. It's very restless. It likes to be on the move. It's the fidget, you know. I have lots of Gemini in my chart, including Jupiter in Gemini, including Gemini rising. And my nickname at school when I was much younger was Fidget from my teacher because I could never keep still. That's a very Gemini type of thing. Scattered energy both physically, as I've just talked about, but also mentally as well. So there's this thoughts and mental overwhelm is really possible with Gemini, particularly with Jupiter in Gemini. So think about where you might be taking on too much. Think about where you might be juggling too many things. Gemini is the juggler. It's the hands, you know, Gemini rules the hands. It's that juggling, not just physically juggling, of course, but juggling many, many different things. There's also a focus with Jupiter and Gemini on justice and laws associated with Gemini and things, which is the news media and social media itself. So we might see new laws coming in to protect young people. Gemini is very much a young person. It's a youthful sign to protect young people and children from social media. Also, there's a focus on schools and education generally, as well as our local neighbourhood. Jupiter is very expansive. It broadens our horizons. It wants us to see the bigger perspective. Whereas Gemini is a little bit more focused on the smaller things. So that's why you see the idea of why Gemini isn't traditionally thought to be the best sign for Jupiter, but we can really work with broadening our horizons, seeing the bigger perspective, as well as getting deep into the details. So you've got the best of both worlds if you can kind of work it out that way. As I said, there's a lot more in the Jupiter and Gemini video that I published a few days ago. Also, you can see here on the bottom of the chart that Jupiter went into Gemini conjunct Sedna. There's a lot about Sedna in that video, and I've done a whole separate video about Sedna. She is a dwarf planet. She is the Inuit goddess of the deep oceans. So maybe we're going as well because Jupiter goes into Gemini conjunct Sedna and the start of a planet in a new sign. What's happening to them in the chart for the so-called ingress when they're moving to the new sign sets the scene. So it sets the scene for the next year. So what might that mean? Well, what about our unconscious mind, our unconscious thoughts? What about deep inner wisdom, deep knowing, intuition? I say that because the oceans, the water, is about our deep consciousness. It's about our dream state as well, isn't it? And we associate water, the oceans, with our emotions and with our dreams, of course. Might even think about perhaps over the next year having more things coming in the news and more experiences with telepathy, remote viewing, connecting to other things, maybe our deep unconscious, or maybe other beings in other dimensions, that communication thing going a lot deeper. So you can think back 12 years. Think back 12 years and where were you? What were you doing? What things, what opportunities were coming up? What did you do? What was the energy like? What were the events in your life? The reason I say that is because Jupiter has a 12-year cycle. So it was 12 years ago that Jupiter was last in Gemini. Now, interestingly, when I thought this morning as I was preparing this video, what was I doing in 12 years' time, 12 years ago? As I said, I've got Jupiter, Gemini in the first house. I've got Gemini rising. So it was going through my first house. Communication, words, spoken words, written words. Well, actually, it was when Jupiter was last in Gemini that I published my first book. It was my first astrology book. It was about Saturn in Scorpio. And interestingly, I'm about to publish a new book very soon. So isn't that interesting? Look to the areas of your life where Jupiter and Gemini will have an effect, will cause expansion, will bring opportunity, will bring a little bit of luck as well, if you're lucky. It's the planet associated with luck, but you've got to go out and find your luck. The houses are the areas of life. So what house does Gemini fall into in your birth chart? As I always say, you can look up a free chart on alab.com, astro.com, etc. And also I'll put a little link in the description for my little take on the brief explanations of what the houses in the chart mean, the areas of life. But to go back to my own experience, if you wouldn't mind me indulging myself for a minute, my next book is coming out very soon. Publication date TBC. Publishing is very Jupiterian. The written, the spoken word is very Geminian, of course. So I have just put the cover, the book design cover. The book's not out yet on my website. And interestingly, it's about life purpose. So if you would again indulge me for a minute or two, and I'll tell you a little bit about what this book is about. So consider this. Have you ever thought there must be something more to life, that you're here to contribute something more meaningful? This is what this book is addressing. So it's inspired actually by my own search for life purpose following illness and burnout, that dark night of the soul, if you like, for those of you that think about the dark night of the soul psychologically and spiritually. Out of that, I had a real deep search for life purpose. And as I was working through finding my own life purpose and started writing this book, as I was going along pretty much, lots of information came to me, and I developed a step-by-step process to help you discover your own life purpose and move into the higher manifestation of it, you know, your own unique purpose. So in the book, you can learn how to decipher the clues to your purpose, how to raise your vibration so you can step into that higher level of your life purpose. And it's full of tips to create your vision. It's full of tools and exercises. So make a note, think about it. I mean, it's for anyone who's curious about their life purpose, you know, and wants to discover the benefits of living a more purposeful life, which is more fulfillment, which is what I was looking for, better health, which I was looking for, and also improved happiness, which I'm looking for. So it's a process I've put myself through and developed as I've been going along. So do actually check out my website on the news and events page on purposeastrology.com. You can see the details there, and then you can kind of subscribe to my website so that you get full information when the book comes out, the dates when it's coming out, special offers, workshops around it. Just to note, that isn't an astrology book. It's not an astrology book, although astrology is mentioned as one of the really helpful tools, one of many really helpful tools to help you with your finding your and stepping into your life purpose. So it's really for anyone really who, as I said, wants to live a happier, more fulfilled life and a more meaningful life. So thank you for indulging me in a very Jupiterian, Geminian way. I really appreciate you listening. But on to current news. So the new moon on the 6th of June. Interestingly, as I'm recording this on the 31st of May, yesterday in New York on the 30th of May, Donald Trump was convicted of falsifying business records. It's the first time, it's an historic conviction. He's now a felon. It's an historic conviction because it's the first time in US history that a former or serving US president has become convicted of a crime. So I think it's really interesting if you look at Donald's chart in the center there and the new moon chart. I'll be talking specifically about the new moon, just looking at the new moon chart next and what it might mean for you. But I thought this is very interesting. It's so fresh in the news at the moment. You can see here in house 10 in blue, 17 degrees, his Uranus. You can see in the outer chart, the sun and the moon at 16 degrees of Gemini. So we've got Uranus in Gemini at 17 and the sun and moon in Gemini at 16. So that's a conjunction. So this new moon is conjunct Donald Trump's chart. So we want to be looking at the news to see of new developments, of something interesting, new information or some kind of event, because Uranus is involved. Uranus symbolizes shock, surprises, rebellion, the truth, the authentic truth, and a focus on the future. So there might be some information or questions about the future of Donald Trump. I mean, this is ahead of his sentencing, which is going to be in July, but time to look out for that as well. And we have what's called an astrological double whammy, because as you can see, if you look at the top of the chart here, you can see in blue again, you've got Uranus, transiting Uranus in the outside chart is conjunct and has been and will be for a while, is conjunct Donald Trump's MC, midheaven, which is the point of status, of reputation, of career, of vocation, of government. So that'll be interesting. So we possibly have some more surprises in store, some more truth, some more evidence, some more interesting things coming out. So have a look out for that around and about the new moon time. So let's look at the new moon. What does it mean for you? What does it mean for us generally? This chart, as I say, Donald Trump's chart is set for New York. He was actually born in New York and the trial took place in New York. But this new moon chart is set for London. The reason it's set for London is because I live in London, so it's easy for me. It's just the default location. So what you want to do, just like I just mentioned with where does Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini fall in your chart? Where does Gemini fall in your chart? The middle degree, 16 degrees of Gemini, where does that fall in your chart? And that'll be the area of life that this new moon will pertain to, as always, as I always say. So it's a time, this new moon, it's the dark of the moon. It's a time for gathering information, for thinking up new ideas, to help with making plans and setting intentions for the month to come, for the months to come. Bearing in mind that Gemini is a very changeable sign, so it's a good idea to build adaptability, flexibility, variety into your plans and into your intentions. It's good for networking. It wants to keep busy. It's a restless energy. I've already talked about restless energy and fidgeting sort of mentally and physically. So it can lead to a scattered mind, mental and physical tiredness, particularly under a new moon. A new moon, it's always suggested in a new moon, the dark of the moon, it's that time where you can take a rest. You can, if possible, you can take a little bit of a rest, particularly a mental rest. So not just a physical rest, but a mental rest. So whatever you can do to go into that still point, to still your mind, to calm your thoughts, your body as well, of course. If you tend to still your mind, your body will relax. If you tend to relax and still your body, your mind also relaxes. Now, obviously, they are connected. We have a mind and a body, and they are connected. They're not two separate things. So however you do it, breathing, grounding. These are the same things I always say: breathing, grounding, meditation, time in nature. It might be time to get physical actually with your hands. I've already mentioned that Gemini is associated with the hands. So maybe it's touching the earth, touching the trees. I'm a big tree hugger. I do actually hug trees quite regularly in my local urban park, usually when no one's looking. But anything that can kind of, with your hands, massage, giving yourself a massage, or getting a massage, or giving someone else a massage, cooking, gardening, anything sort of to use your hands. So the flexible nature, it's flexible, isn't it? Flexible Gemini, changeable Gemini. You can see on this chart it's conjunct Venus. So with Venus here, it's about good relations, isn't it? It's about yielding and compromise. Gemini can be quite a yielding sign. It can it can change its mind. It can hear one opinion and then gather the facts around that opinion, and then someone else will give a completely different opinion, or something else will give a different opinion, or they'll read something differently. More information, overload, and then they can't make up their mind, or they might change their mind. Perhaps the same in relationships. You might say you don't want to do something, or then someone says, "Oh, go on, go on, go on, go on," because there's a fun element to Gemini. Gemini's very social, wants to get out and about, wants to do things. So think about people pleasing, thinking about being too too compromising and giving away too much of your energy, because it can be energy sapping. These air signs, we've got these air signs, all these air signs you can see here in this new moon. You've got Venus, you've got Sun, you've got Moon, you've got Mercury, you've got Jupiter and Sedna, and then we also have Pluto in the air sign of Aquarius. So they're in a very airy time. So that's scattered being up in your head, too much. Maybe if you're sensitive, oversensitive to what other people say, thinking, do people like me, or did I say the wrong thing? And that worry thing that can come with too much air sometimes. So be kind to yourself, rest, take a break, be kind to yourself, be kind to others as well. Think peaceful thoughts. Send peaceful thoughts out into the world. There's a lot of division in the world out there at the moment. This thing with Trump, for example, there's going to be people who will be thinking twice about voting for Trump because now he's a felon, whereas there'll be division with people who are loyal followers of Trump and will want to support him regardless, and will believe, like Trump does, that he's been erroneously convicted. So, I mean, he's going to appeal. So we'll see. Watch this space. This can go on and drag on for a long time. So cancel those negative thoughts. And if you have negative thoughts about yourself or others or situations, as we all do, we all have a negative bias. Maybe say cancel that and replace it with a peaceful thought, with a kinder thought. It's square Saturn, this new moon as well. So I talked about sort of feeling as if you're being, someone said something that you don't like, and so there can be that defensiveness as well. So be aware that there might be defensiveness, not just yourself, but also in others. Be aware that if you tell your truth, or you tell your truth to someone else, or you tell your truth to power, because Jupiter here is still in a trine. He's in a trine here to Pluto, truth to power, Jupiter truth, Pluto power, truth to power. That those ideas and opinions, that those truths that you say or you believe, that you share, might be denied. In the same token, someone else might want to be super truthful to you, and you might sort of deny and go, no, I don't believe that. That's not part of my belief. So truth to power, denial because of this this Saturn square to this new moon. But that Saturn gives discipline. So once you dream up these new ideas, gather the informations, the facts, maybe run them past other people to get their opinions, make up your mind, adapt things and add a bit of variety, all these Gemini things, then you do have a little bit of discipline on hand from that Saturn square there. Saturn brings discipline, of course, wants you to work hard, sometimes a little bit too hard, which is something that Gemini doesn't always want to do. They want to sort of do something quickly and move on. Saturn slows you down. The other thing that slows you down, which isn't necessarily, or which might slow you down, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for this Gemini season when everything seems to be quite fast moving, is that Mars goes into Taurus on the 9th of June, where it'll stay until the 20th of July. It's been in Aries. You can see in this chart it's at 28 of Aries. It's still getting towards the end of Aries. Aries is fast moving, it's single focus, it wants to do everything now and it wants to do everything fast. It might not necessarily want to follow through or finish things. Fortunately, Mars in Taurus gives us the energy to follow through, to have more staying power, to have more focus, to follow through rather than that single focus of getting something done and getting it done now, that focus to see the end result and to stick at it until it's done, whatever the idea, the project, whatever the thing that you're working on or you're trying to do. Stamina as well, to see those plans through. Resourcefulness as well. Mars in Aries doesn't necessarily think about the resources that we need to follow through on a plan or a project or an intention. But the Earth sign of Taurus is all about resourcefulness as well. It's about safety and security as well. So keeping yourself sort of safe, not going too out of bounds, so to speak. So one more thing about that I didn't mention in my video about Jupiter in Gemini was that Jupiter is the jovial planet. It's the planet of wit and humor. Mercury is also, Gemini, which is Mercury rules Gemini. Gemini is also about wit, clever one-liners and puns and pranks and jokes and comedy. So that's a nice thing to think about this Gemini season, that lightness of sort of having a little bit of a laugh, a little bit of a joke, playing a prank, but not playing, no mean pranks, please. So thank you for watching. As always, it's a pleasure to record these videos for you. As I said, the times they are changing. We're in Gemini season now. The times are always changing, but I think there's overarching changes that are happening as well. I've talked a lot in the past about Pluto in Aquarius is bringing huge changes, not just Pluto in Aquarius, but the Jupiter and Saturn cycle. The Jupiter-Saturn cycle brings that sense of purpose, and we had the conjunction in 2020, and from July this year we will have the first square of the current cycle of Jupiter Gemini, which is a 20-year cycle. I talk about it in much more detail in the Jupiter in Gemini video, but basically one of the major things to that is sense of purpose. What direction? It's future oriented. What direction are we going in? What do we want to achieve? What is our purpose? So completely coincidentally, I'm bringing my book out with Jupiter in Gemini, and in the lead up to, during the sense of purpose, Jupiter square Saturn, which is all about having a sense of purpose. I didn't plan it that way, but these wonderful synchronicities are so beautiful. They really are so beautiful. Anyway, I thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful, beautiful Gemini new moon season and general Gemini season. The times they are changing. It's up to us to make sure that they change for the better by going out in the world with love and with peace, as always. Thank you so, so much. Subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. Check out my website if you are interested in my astrology work, but also my new book coming out. Thank you so much, and lots and lots and lots of love as always. Thank you. Bye-bye.